can say definitively that religions are all bullshit.
Welcome to Brainstorm.
We have the explicit tag for a reason.
This is a base level argument to a higher level of morality.
I get paid to science?
To science as much as one can science.
What the hell was my point?
Trigger warning. The Brainstorm podcast will criticize your most cherished beliefs. We attack nonsense in all its forms and discuss difficult subjects. If you peddle pseudoscience, supernatural woo, or religious dogma, then this is not your safe place. This is the home of hardcore skepticism.
Hi, and welcome to the Brainstorm Podcast, Skeptic Studio, where we do interviews, major topics, and news related to skepticism and atheism. I'm Cory, and my panel tonight are Angela.
Hello.
And Lisa.
Yay, it's me.
With the always amazing Dave doing sound.
I'll try to be amazing.
We're here in Roman Empire Studios in Regina, Saskatchewan, and today is November 24th, 2017. Our guests tonight are GW.
Hello.
And Aaron.
How's it going?
From the Embrace the Void podcast. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Good to be here.
Yeah, it's fun.
So I guess a good place to start with our interview is to tell us about your show. What is Embrace the Void?
Sure. So Embrace the Void is a philosophy, comedy, politics podcast that we started shortly after everything went to hell about a year or so ago. And we realized that we'd been sucked into one of the worst of all possible timelines. And so we developed a podcast that was about helping people come to terms with this horrible timeline that we live in and giving them the tools they need in order to manage their suffering within this world.
You're talking about like Biff becoming president and Marty's mom getting breast implants, right?
Oh, right. I wish that was the timeline. Because at least we'd have flying cars, and then I'd have something to sort of, cope with.
Dogs. No, I don't think there's any flying cars in the 1985 alternate. I mean, there was flying cars in the future of that, but I don't know that they necessarily arrive at flying. I'm just saying no, sorry.
They have the hover.
It's a technicality.
Yeah.
But he brings it back from the alternate future that won't happen in the Biff timeline. I'm just saying you don't know if you followed that timeline if flying cars would happen. It doesn't matter. I'm sorry.
I
am
mean,
not
it totally
a
matters. It's like, who knows how we got into this timeline, right? The Large Hadron Collider.
That's the real question.
It was the LHC, actually. I know for a fact.
We may have always been in the worst timeline, and we just didn't know it yet. Right?
Yeah, and one of our main themes is we argue over. Aaron thinks we're in the worst of all possible timelines. I think we're in a really bad timeline, but lately it's been pretty bad, and I've been becoming slowly a nihilist.
Yeah.
Well, we should say fatalist, right? We try to distinguish.
I'm going full nihilism now.
You're full. So, I don't describe myself as a nihilist because I think that things matter. I just think that our ability to fix things is non-existent, relatively speaking, and we're pretty much fucked on a large scale. But the suffering matters. It's just we're not going to fix it.
How is this the worst of all time? Have you not seen Planet of the Apes? Have you not heard of the Middle Ages?
Oh my God, that'd be better.
People, I mean, come on. This is
the bubonic plague.
Come on.
So we're not. So we're in the best of all moments in the worst of all timelines, I think, or one of the better moments, right? So better angels of our nature, right? Murder has gone down, but at the same time, we're 20 years out from seeing massive climate change and nothing is going to be done about it, and we're all just going to get to slowly watch everything collapse like a flan in the cupboard.
Yeah, the timeline is sort of playing the long game. It's not really playing the short game. We like to think that no one is hungry at least in the U.S., but poverty and hunger is actually on a growing scale right now.
Right.
So we should just drink the Kool-Aid.
I mean, I prefer bourbon, but I guess whatever flavors you enjoy, drink whatever makes you feel good.
I'm drinking. Okay.
For example, I think that Trump's going to get impeached eventually.
Do you really think that that's going to happen?
I really do. I think there's a more than 50% chance that Mueller will bring sufficient charges that Trump will have to be removed. I think in the process, though, like there's going to be violence. There's going to be, and it's going to substantially damage our democracy. So, like, I think that we're in the worst timeline, even though he's going to be removed. I think the removal is going to be part of the fact that we're in this terrible timeline.
And also what's going to make it the worst timeline is then we're going to get Pence and things are going to get worse because he's going to be better at it.
No, he's not going to be better at it. But, like, we never recovered from Nixon. Like, we never got over the fact that Nixon happened. And we're never going to get over the Democrat deep state removal of Donald Trump by force.
Interesting.
It doesn't fill a person's heart with hope.
I mean, right? There's a reasonable chance that this ends with somebody shouting through the White House Oval Office door, don't die for this person. Like, just, drop your guns and let us come in and do what we need to do. Like, there's no reason for anyone else to die today, right? That's a plausible step in what is going on with the Mueller investigation.
Well, it depends. Have they hired Channing Tatum yet in the White House? I've seen White House Down. It's fucking amazing, and that fucker will not let anything happen to the president, even if he fucking hates him.
After Kingsman 2, I bet Channing's probably got some space in his calendar.
Is it not good?
I mean, I assume after the ending of the first one, which I was really pissed off about, that the second one is more of the same.
I liked the first one.
I haven't seen it.
I liked the first one right up until the part with the, like, really inappropriate, like,
I remember
Dutch.
the part. I remember
the
part.
The chick with the chick wanting anal sex and like offering anal sex in exchange for like this
her freedom.
This next level version of like the saving the princess you get laid trope, and it was just
it was
super
weird. It was
disgusting.
weird.
It was so gross.
But what would fair market? What
Yeah,
fair
that's how it's the
value
new version, right? It's not just getting laid; it's you get the layer in the butt, and that's how you know that it's super.
That is not my favorite part of the movie.
No, and it ruined otherwise a functionally acceptable movie for me.
It pushed it too far. It was,
and it's like part of the the rebooting of that genre, right? Where all the things like whenever you reboot something, everything has to get turned up one louder, and that's the trope of you get laid one louder.
Wow.
To be fair, it was consensual.
Fuck that shit.
Yeah.
No, sure. It was super consensual and just like horrifying in other ways.
Just horrifying.
Which is better than most of our news, right? Most of our news is horrifying and non-consensual butt stuff.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Or plant semen stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Or children's stuff.
Ooh.
Or children.
Ugh.
But apparently it's better to vote for a gross... What is the thing that when
pedophile.
you thank you what
Heterat?
Yeah.
Hemophiliac? Or hemophobe? What's the
Oh, right.
What's the libertarian?
They named it something other than that.
After 13, it's less bad. Which, like, to be fair, when I was 13, I thought the same thing.
Yes.
How many of y'all's public figures are you guys having like a big outing of gropers and whatnot?
But we had about 4 or 5 years ago, we had a very prominent radio personality named Gian Gomeshi who had that was pretty traumatic for me because I really enjoyed his show.
Me too.
And I was like,
me too.
I
still have a trouble talking about it.
I was pissed. And then nobody believed the victims, and it was and then he ended, the justice system did nothing for them, which is not shocking. But anyway, it was a big trial. But anyways, blah blah blah. That was pretty bad. I don't think we've had anything more Canadian more recent than that.
Because you guys have the Austin Trudeau. So
he's not accused of sexually harassing anyone. That's good.
Oh, wait for it. He's so nice and pretty and perfect.
Aaron's theory is that anyone who is like left liberal, who's actually an amazing person, probably touched someone inappropriately at least one point.
Don't trust anybody.
Yes.
It's like Bill Hicks, right? One day his wife's going to be on the news saying, I always wondered about his collection of little shoes.
Oh.
Yeah. That's right.
That's creepy.
I mean, I hope not.
No, he seems like a mostly okay, neoliberal, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, like, So you haven't had the purge going on the way we've been having the purge over on this side of the continent.
Not in politics necessarily. There's some stuff going on locally where a woman accused the official opposition party of somebody who was an elected official for the opposition party in our province of sexual harassment, and then the premier of our province used that complaint and the lack of its investigation as some kind of mudslinging of the opposition. And then that caused a little bit of controversy because he was using someone's story of sexual harassment as
for political gain.
Mm-hmm.
And which I think is legitimate dirty
that's Brad
politics.
Wall, because that's the kind of guy he is.
Yeah, he's just a mudslinger, and it's just really disappointing. But other than that, there hasn't.
Disappointing. You have to have expectations of somebody to be disappointed. I expect Brad Wall to be a prick. I don't nothing. Like Donald Trump doesn't disappoint me.
Right? No, he lives up to expectations.
Yes,
let me down.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
I'm like impressively crappy. Like even worse than I thought. Good job.
And he reaches these new goals.
He
These new
does.
benchmarks,
It's
every day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
I think he's really moved the zeitgeist in a lot of ways. I do literally think that like the reason we're seeing a purge of sexual harassers in America is because we all saw a sexual assaulter get elected president, and we can't remove him. So instead, we're finally going to the mat for victims in other cases. It feels like there's been a shift where if you look like Donald Trump, there's a different perspective on you now.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference is, like with Trump, he wasn't just like a sexual assaulter. He was someone who bragged about it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that is like an extra. That's what puts the cherry on the, mullet top that is his hair.
And he still brags about it. Like he's completely unapologetic about his treatment of women or lack of treatment. Like he just has no shame.
But no one treats women better than him. He's the best at it.
Oh,
he is the best at it.
Bigly.
He would totally screw his daughter, right?
When
No,
he gets
he
impeached, there's
He
a
said this. He said
better
this
than
on a
50
talk
Shades
show.
he did.
He
He did on The View.
Yeah.
God.
Oh yeah.
It's
He
fucking
would tap that.
disgusting. He would.
Right.
See that picture of him with her when she was like 12 or 13?
My dad doesn't grab me around the fucking hips like he touches his daughter. Like, it's so
And
gross.
When Kushner eventually flips on him, which he will, because no one is going to jail for Donald Trump, right? There will be some animosity between them that is specifically tied to the fact that Kushner and not Donald Trump has been the individual engaging in fornication, right? Like, you have to know that part of him hates Kushner because he gets to do the thing that Donald Trump wants to do.
Yeah.
And in Donald Trump's mind, there is very little else besides what he wants to do and the people who are preventing him from doing it.
Mm-hmm. Ugh.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Can I just say that's gross? But
we
you
can
can't
do fun stuff.
You can't. I don't know that you can fornicate with your wife. Like fornication refers to sex that's not indoor. Anyways.
No, we're talking about his daughter, though.
No, but you just said Jared Kushner is fornicating with
Right.
Trump's daughter.
Right.
But he's not because he's having.
Trump thinks that he's fornicating. Trump thinks that it's not okay. It's not fair.
Sure. Fine.
not
I give you that.
We can just get this out of the way off the top because that's just really fucking depressing. But we're in the void, so I mean, how comfy of a space have you guys created in the void? Like you have a nice couch, you have like good TV, or
yeah, we found like some cool people to hang out with. So it's been like it's nice because like we do like half and half, where it's like half. Oh my God, the fucking void, and the other half is like, oh, but like all of these cool people, and we're in it together, and we huddle together like penguins, and like
Sweet.
It's March of the Penguins, we're the storm all the time, but we're
Yes.
huddled together and we're taking turns against the outside, right? Like
you're looking down watching cat videos
Oh, yeah.
as you're huddled together.
all the time.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
sweet. That's good.
Puppy videos for me, but I mean, I understand.
I'm a cat video guy. I have 3 cats.
Some people like watching
Nice.
sociopaths. Other people like watching animals that care about things. Fine.
I like baby laughing videos, and sometimes the otters are cute.
The otters.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Babies laughing at random shit. Just, I can't even, man.
I love things like the modern internet because it's like I have an otter friend who's my friend who whenever I see a really great otter meme, I have to send her that. She's my otter person.
Yeah.
I love that I have that.
Yeah, everyone has somebody
You've
like
got
that.
an otter
yeah.
guy.
I got an otter girl.
Yes.
It's kind of kinky. but yeah,
I gotta go for that.
That's funny.
Or, yes, I have a rabbit person. I have an otter person. Polar bear person.
I mean, we went and saw the otters at the zoo, and like I would take home a pet otter in a heartbeat. I would.
Fuck yeah.
I'm like, they're so cute.
Yeah.
They're and like they float around and do nothing useful, but just like flips and like cleaning themselves, and they're adorable.
Yeah,
And they hold hands.
Oh my god, they hold hands.
Yeah, and they eat on their backs with food on their stomach.
I know they do.
That's the
human
dream.
things with their hands.
Yes.
Great.
Yes. One can only dream about
Right,
those
to be
things.
to be buoyant and eating at the same time.
Not while she's sipping her coffee. It's not
Oh,
nice.
yes.
I have a random question. GW, where are you?
I'm in my office. I work at a university.
Oh, I was like, you are in a university dorm or some
you have
shit.
any
'cause I can
natural
recognize
light?
those fucking walls, and you were in a basement dungeon for sure.
Yeah.
Are you a
Sub-
grad
My-
student? Like what? That's totally what I was
No.
thinking.
No, I teach
yeah.
at UW-Madison.
Okay. Yep.
Do you
that's
have
where
any
you
natural
are.
light there?
No, I'm in the basement. My office is
You
in
can
the basement.
tell by
I can
looking
tell
at
it's-
it. Look at this.
You need a Himalayan salt lamp
Power outlet.
stat.
That power outlet is like coming from the ceiling, and they're like, "Oh
It's
yeah,
amazing.
we don't need to go all the way to the floor. No one here matters."
No, it's just it's the cinder block walls, the painted cinder block that you just it's
Yes.
just pure education right there. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm fucking learning just looking at those walls.
Yes.
I spent several years in college living in a share house that was a theater-based share house, and I lived in a room with literally no windows, and I loved it. Like,
Because you could sleep whenever.
oh my god, I had friends come in, and we did a whole thing where we painted all the walls with some weird murals and stuff, and it was just the best room ever.
See, that's an advantage. That sounds
Great.
reasonable.
It was way better than natural light. Fuck natural light.
No,
Fuck vitamin D.
no,
I
Who
know,
cares
you
about
guys,
vitamin
like,
D?
I don't have the seasonal affective disorder thing, so I'm like, whatever. I can
It's
live
bad
in
up here, man.
No,
It's
I need
bad
my
up
black
here.
body photons, man. I like go up to I work in a basement too, and I go up to blink at them once in a while. Like yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I'm
bought
from
a
Southern
light.
California originally, so
Oh.
I'm used to the sun. And so, like, living in a cold place where you get no sun, it could be rough sometimes.
I had to buy a light that simulates the sun. Just
No, I understand.
cold
Yeah.
doesn't
Good idea.
cold doesn't necessarily mean no sun. Like here on the prairies, we get a lot of like when it's minus 40, ain't no fucking clouds,
The
right? Like
sun's there.
condensation can't fucking happen. It's blue and sunny, and
when there's
the
snow
s-
on the ground,
and
it's
it blinds
especially
you.
bright.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Better than I used
live-
to live on the West Coast, like in Vancouver Island, just dark all winter, rainy and dark.
Yeah.
I was in
Seattle.
FOCO for several years when I was in grad school, and it was like it's a mile up, so it was very dry and then lots of snow, and it was just like I was there for one of the winters that was like there was the what do they call it there was something like two winters ago that was just ridiculous where like or no it was like 4 or 5 and it was like -4 degrees for just days and just like feet of snow on but like I guess you don't care, right? Y'all are laughing at me because you're like
What is -4? Like minus 10 in Celsius?
Yeah, something like that.
You guys are
Oh, yeah.
pussies. You guys are full up pussies. Fuck you.
we have
I love that you got to convert it to the reasonable metrics.
Well, I don't necessarily know what -4 means, but I know that minus 32 they both meet.
and you
They
can't even
meet.
be a pussy in the right numbers.
we don't mean to belittle
Well,
you.
no, 32
anyway.
water freezes, and minus 32 they're the same.
Yeah.
So -4 has got to be something in between 0 and minus 32. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah. Coldest it's gotten here is minus
know.
33 Celsius.
We've
That's
had
cold.
like minus 50 something with the wind chill.
Yeah, that's cold.
That's when you just put on your skidoo suit and move quickly.
Yeah, I've discovered I can't go out running below minus 35. Minus 40 is too much. Minus 35 you can do.
Oh my
Minus
God,
40
are you
is no good.
kidding me?
No, you
Can't
just
do
got to
it.
get a
No.
neoprene mask so you can breathe. Otherwise, you can't breathe.
I would never go outside. I would just,
No, dude, you just got to dress for it.
That's
Just gotta
why we
dress
have
for it.
shopping malls. We don't have as many like strip malls where you have to go outside to go to a different store.
No, you have like the
Yeah.
lake path to yourself when it's minus 30, man. Ain't no one else there except for the crazy old dude waves at you, and that's it, man.
Yeah, careful.
do y'all have the weird dystopian subterranean passages to get everywhere when it becomes too horrible to be on the surface?
Universities do sometimes. Does U of R have that?
I don't think so.
I have no idea.
They have quite a few different passages where you don't.
They're pretty interconnected through the
Yeah, I went to the
hallways.
University of Calgary. You could if you lived in res, you literally could not go outside.
Yeah.
Right. I remember reading a short story about kids living on Venus, and they could go out for once every 18 years for a day or something. And it's like, that's what Canada's like, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much like that.
Except Venus
It's-
is hot, and I don't know why you'd be able to go out once. Like, is that like a radiation thing?
Well, you got to
Like
be
exposure?
adapted to the
This
atmosphere.
is, there's a lot of poisonous gas.
Oh.
It's like, there's like one
No,
day
you
a
can't
year
go
where,
out
like, all
for
the
a day
clouds
on
clear.
Venus.
I know,
That's the stupidest thing I've
you know,
heard.
evolve.
It's
to
like
live
400
stories.
degrees. It's like
Oh, see, I thought it was the one day that the Mormons weren't out, and you
yeah.
They came to my house the other day.
they did. I love Mormons. I'm
I
like,
invited them
can't-
in, and they said, "Is there a man at home?" I was like, "No, my husband's gone." He's like, "We can't come.
We
in."
can't come in.
Damn it!
Oh, they were boys.
Yes.
You were trying to. You were a cougar. Oh my god.
I was gonna atheist the shit out of them, but they just
Wait. These are terrible people, right? Because if they believe in eternal suffering, it is their obligation to come
Right.
inside and convert you no matter your sex.
Yes.
Like, these people are bad people.
You know, I'm glad they put some limits on these kids. Like, they're always coming up to me and they're like, "Have you heard the word?" I'm like, "No, but you be safe out there, okay, kids? Because seriously, like, I'm worried about
Yeah.
them. Like, they're so
it was
sweet.
cold. I
They're
wanted to
effing
give them a
sweet.
warm beverage, but they're fucking lost, man.
I love talking to them. It's like one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
Like I had a couple of kids. I stopped to talk to them for a half an hour, and I was actually really impressed. I was doing things like Pascal's wager, and the guy was like, "Oh yeah," and you start talking about. I was like, "Wow, this guy actually knows some stuff."
No
Like,
way.
I was impressed.
That's awesome.
I got doxxed by the Mormons in college once. Well, I mean, one of my roommates called the Mormons on me and said, I have a roommate who, or not, like he said, there's someone in this house who wants to talk about Mormonism. And, like, they showed up, and like he's in his doorway, like looking at me, giggling as I'm like, oh, how do I appropriately respond to these poor human beings who've been used as a tool for like fucking around?
That is brilliant.
I hate to tell you this,
They were
but
like-
you're a prank.
Oh my god! Like, they're like, "Have you read the Bible?" I'm like, "Oh my god, I've read so much of the Bible." And they're like, "No, have you read the real Bible, the Mormon Bible?" And I'm like, "Ooh,
Oh no.
Yeah.
I haven't, and I'm not. I think I'm okay. I don't need Space Bible."
That's hilarious. That reminds me of the time, like when I was an undergrad, which was a million years ago, when the chemistry
Literally.
club, when the chemistry club put an ad in like the bargain finder for $100 Xbox with games, with our phone number for the physics club on there, and then we got like a call every like 20 seconds for like 48 hours, like just for looking for the Xbox. Yeah,
No.
we did. It was a great
Oh my
prank,
Gosh.
but it wasn't quite Mormon level, but it was pretty good. Fucking
dirty.
chemists, fucking chemists.
Right,
Chemists.
like swatting, and then Mormons, and then that.
Yeah.
Swatting.
For real. Yeah,
Yep.
for real.
We haven't been swatted yet, thankfully. As a philosophy professor, I end up on a lot of lists, so I don't think it'd be that hard to get the government to show up at my house if somebody was really inclined.
That
Your
After all the
information is
things that
everywhere.
I said online, I'm sure I'm on all of the lists.
So,
Yep.
do both of you have a background in philosophy?
No, Aaron does. I'm an artist. I'm a sound designer for theater.
nice.
Interesting.
We met working together at a performing and visual arts camp that teaches kids how to be the weird people that they are via art. So like it's a really great camp. It's a camp that I grew up at, and it means a lot to me. But he does the sound and stuff, and is interested in philosophy, but doesn't have the degree in it. And I come from the academic background, and then.
Yeah, when I was in undergrad, I took all the philosophy classes I could that satisfied my general education requirements, and I almost minored in it, but then I just didn't have the time.
Okay.
I seem to remember avoiding all the philosophy classes I could.
Yeah, we're trying to rehabilitate the brand a little bit. Like, I feel like people have a bad impression of it. But
Yeah,
I think that,
some of the coolest people I know are philosophers. Really, like.
Yeah, no, I get it. You all have philosopher friends. It's fine, and we don't all look the same or anything. It's cool.
I mean, you guys do look the same. Let's be real.
I know, the beard and the wild
We're genetically
hair is
related.
pretty
It's a small province.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
I mean, when it's cold, inbreeding as a concern probably goes by the wayside a little bit.
You don't
right?
give a fuck.
Well, yeah. Like, my parents are fucking related, and I'm not even kidding. Because,
Hey, right?
right. And, I mean, I'm a Mennonite, so it's like you have to look at your genealogy before you go all the way with a dude. Because
Sure.
there
Hey,
was...
if we go back far enough, we're all related.
There was
right?
legitimate fear. My husband and I, when like we realized we were kind of into each other, we were like, "Oh fuck, okay." I pulled out the genealogy books. I was like, "Okay, does this name look? Does it?" We weren't related, thank goodness.
No, this sounds like the perfect like dating website where it like
Yes.
not related.
Yes.
That ensures at least like 2 or 3 degrees of of separation between you and the person you want to bone.
Yeah,
I like
absolutely.
We should start a dating app.
We should. A Mennonite dating app.
Timber. Oh wait, I think
An
it's already
Anabaptist dating app.
Dude, okay, I'm not kidding. Okay. I listened to a podcast on CBC like freaking 7 years ago. Okay. And it was all about how it's actually true that people who are genetically related, closely genetically related, but were not raised together, like a mother and son separated at birth or whatever, have each of them separately has a 50% chance of being incredibly attracted to the other person.
Yes.
So then if you do the math, then that would mean a 1 in 4 chance of both being incredibly, and then they almost always end up having a relationship, like the super taboo, like whatever, brother, sister, mother. No, I'm not kidding. Like it's a
This sounds like
thing.
Game of Thrones.
No. Like,
Yeah.
we talked about
It
this in
is.
class.
Huh?
We talked about this in my ethics class. Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that right?
Thank you.
Exactly those kind of relationships.
I
And,
know.
like,
I know a story of my friend. Her sister had a daughter who I think she gave her up for adoption, and my friend's son and this girl she gave up for adoption got together and were super into each other, but they didn't know that they were first cousins, and yeah, they're not together anymore. But it was like really intense.
I want to hear how you talk about this in your ethics class.
Well, so first thing first, good news, genetically speaking, right, you're okay. Like, unless you're engaging in multiple generations of inbreeding, like, one generation with first cousins is fine.
Like Saudi Arabia is pretty bad.
I just wanted you to know, like, if you were interested in, like, having kids with your husband, you should feel okay about that.
We're not related, thank goodness.
And they've already procreated.
We talk about
fucking
slippery slope. This is where it comes up, right? We talk about the fallacy of slippery slope, and the classic example of, like, if you're okay with homosexuality, you have to be okay with incest and polygamy and bestiality, etc.
That's true, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Little known
Right,
fact.
100%. I mean, like, not that you have to be, but you should be, right? Because those are all very fun, and that's all that matters. But, like, if you put that hedonism aside for a second and discuss other ethical views, right, you could talk about, like, how it's not a slippery slope because the issue of consent, right? You can have consent in a homosexual relationship, but you can't have it in a bestial relationship or something like that. You could probably have it in polygamy, which is why ultimately I think, in our lifetimes we're going to see a move towards the condoning of polyamorous relationships, and with them a call for polygamous systems of some sort. And then, like, hard cases like incest. Like, what do you do about that case of someone who was separated from their parent at birth or something and then meets them later and is attracted to them? Like, is it moral, or is it a case of unequal power dynamics that lead to coercive relationships, for example?
Yeah.
Let's also keep in mind that Adam and Eve, they had 3 sons.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a really good argument.
I'm just gonna
I
leave
see
that
where
right
you're going
there.
with that. Yeah.
The answer is, like,
That's
some women showed up from some place called the Land of Nod, right?
Yeah,
And, like,
that's right.
where is that place and how is it related to Eden? Chingley Keys.
Yeah.
Right. But like, that's how we talk about it in the classes, right? Like, I think if you're truly separated from a relative and have no relationship with them, there might be some plausibility to that situation. Or like you're related to someone via a marriage, but not by blood or something like that. Like I can understand those kinds of situations and how that could be acceptable in some cases and really problematic in other cases.
That's interesting.
Aaron makes you think. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And as liberals, right, we're I mean, you guys all seem fairly liberalish.
We are.
In the American way, right? Convert that via a metric, right? Whatever that means for you people. Like you're interested in accepting any sort of behavior that you don't think directly harms other people. So like for incest, your question isn't a disgust one. It's a question of, is this harmful to the people involved, or is this harmful to other people? And like, is this coercive? Right, those are the sorts of questions that I bet you actually are more caught up with.
That's like that was my question. Where my thoughts went when you said that polygamy would be accepted, because I sure as hell don't care if grown-up adults want to have a polyamorous relationship. That's fine with me. But when you have situations where you have like very men in their 50s, 60s marrying 14-year-old girls, that's a different kettle of fish to me.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of Mormons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mormons are many others.
Yeah.
Right. And the only argument against legalizing polygamy is that, like, historically it's been used as a system of oppression against women. And so the question is, are those systems of oppression going to reemerge in force if you legalize this behavior for the consenting adults who would use it appropriately? And
go
ahead.
I'm sorry.
No,
I was
that's
just going to say, one of the things that's like fascinating about the arguments that were made about, against homosexual marriage was that it doesn't really matter. Like all it has to do with is a tax standing, right? And things like being able to be disclosed when your significant other is in the hospital or something like that.
Make decisions.
Like that's really like what was most important to homosexual people, was being able to have that thing that wasn't sort of separate but equal.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a fair argument to be made about polyamorous relationships being allowed a marital status of some kind, but the fears of history, I think, are very valid, and so it's a really troubling question.
But it's kind of silly, right? Because it's not like they made gay marriage legal, and I'm like, well, I'm going to get married now to a woman because
You're gonna get gay married.
I'm not interested in doing this, and I probably wouldn't get involved in a polyamorous relationship either because I'm personally not interested in it just because it's legal. It's just
right. The same reason heroin doesn't spike when you legalize heroin is because the reason most people don't do heroin is because they don't want to do heroin.
That's right.
Yeah.
Stupid people.
Our province is legalizing weed in a few months, and
as well they should, because unlike heroin, everyone should be doing weed.
Yeah.
right?
Doing it, as the kids
Do
would say.
weed.
Quote, unquote,
Do that
doing
weed,
it.
Right.
baby.
Yes.
Blow those joints.
You
and
sound just about as cool as I do. Oh, that's not good.
I don't have any reputation to defend. Like anyone who knows me knows that like understands where I'm coming from on that particular topic. I'll leave it vague like that for my students, right, who might stumble across this.
They probably are all listening.
They're all listening right now.
I'm pro legalization, like most philosophers, unsurprisingly.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a hard question though. Unlike weed, right? If we're talking about weird things that philosophers get into, this is always a fun topic for me. What are y'all's stance on voluntary or consensual cannibalism?
Consensual cannibalism.
Yeah.
So if I'm like, I sign a consent form and then you make pulled pork out of me?
Yeah. Have y'all ever read Stranger in a Strange Land?
No.
We don't read books here.
Okay.
We just huddle for warmth.
So
I only read
down where the
feminist
sun
books.
still shines, and we have daytime. We read books sometimes, and there's a book by Heinlein called "Stranger in a Strange Land,"
Okay.
which is about a guy who comes back from Mars, having grown up amongst Martians, and has a very non-human view of philosophy and morality and lots of issues and things.
Okay.
And one of the things he brings back with him is a custom from Mars where loved ones will cook and consume the dead body of fallen loved ones.
Okay.
So like they haven't murdered them; they just happened to die.
As a ritual of like sharing in the loss of this person and remembering them, and like part of their death and mourning ritual, right? So like, what do you think about that?
So I have a concern from like a public health standpoint, because I know they have issues in certain cultures where eating whatever loved one's brain.
Right, you got to avoid the prions.
Okay, so other than that, I don't care. That's
Movies
fine.
and comic
That's
books
fine
have
with
told
me.
me that that's always some sort of curse is associated with that. So,
Sure.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
The interesting thing is it actually already exists, and I don't mean in like third world countries, right? Pregnant women have been eating their placenta like in droves over the last couple of years.
Yeah,
But is that cannibalism? That's like eating yourself.
That's
like
eating,
your own.
that's eating human flesh.
It's self-cannibalism.
So you're eating your own cells, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's like half a step from Catholicism in terms of cannibalism.
I feel neutral. That's cool with me as long as I have public health concerns. Other than that, I don't.
I
really care.
almost ate my own placenta. I'm not true confessions. I almost did that.
You had a doula, so you were a hippie.
So you've already inbred, right? You're way ahead of the game. You didn't even care about the moral quandaries that I was presenting earlier. Like you're
like, it's no big deal.
no, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, like, I'm pro cannibalism, so I'm not judging you, obviously. Right?
I can be eaten as long as they taste good. I just want to, I just hope it's delicious.
The Hannibal Lecter view of cannibalism.
Yes.
Right.
A little bit of Chianti.
I grew up with Hannibal Lecter. That was like my hero growing up, so I'm very interested.
That movie disturbed me.
That's the appropriate response.
I will say on air, I haven't killed anybody yet, as far as anyone can prove, and I don't think anyone
yet.
We're fine. Right, moving on.
Okay.
Right, moving on.
Do the weed, everybody.
I said consensual cannibalism. I'm not going to kill anybody to eat them. I'm just saying consensually speaking.
But what if somebody consented to you killing them and eating them?
Yeah, right. That's fine.
Well, there's already societal issues with consenting to be killed, right? Like there's lots of those.
That's true. Maybe a little bit more relevant than the cannibalism thing.
Yeah,
too.
probably.
What's your pro-cannibalism? Euthanasia is easy, right? Like,
yeah.
The Swedish are already pro-euthanasia, right? So we just got to get them on board with the cannibalism. It's not going to be that hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's okay in Oregon now, I think.
Sure.
Oh,
everything's okay in Oregon.
They brought it in Canada. It's legal now. My friend's mom actually chose that just this last week.
It's just one of the many, the pushbacks against religious moralizing.
Mm-hmm. I think it's good. I think it's good. It's fucking time. I think the only thing here, like there wasn't enough legislation about mature minors being able to make that decision if they're dealing with various challenges. I mean, mental illness among those. I think that the laws that we have here kind of fall short a little bit. So hopefully they can fill in the gaps.
There's also a lot of bureaucracy that can limit that because there's like Catholic sponsored church or hospitals that can work around this rule because they don't want to do it.
That's right. They've been having that trouble in Manitoba.
Yeah, we have that problem with abortion and birth control, and Catholic churches own a vast amount of hospitals in America at this point. So
yeah,
I'm not sure where the bargain was made with society where churches got to invest in hospitals, but North America is rife with them. Like it's all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was because they were one of the only ones that were building hospitals at the time. Like if you go back far enough, like they were, when churches actually used to give a shit about people that weren't just their own constituents, right? They were oftentimes the people in like wartime, especially where you would go to a church in order to get asylum, not just asylum from the outside world, but also like help for yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
I mean, there hasn't been a good model of mental health treatment yet, right?
Like the modern
model is an improvement on the asylum model.
Lobotomies.
And praying the gay away. I mean, that works.
Because that works. That is effective.
Right, the classic institutions are like Hieronymus Bosch paintings, pretty much.
Yes. I got to see one of those up close. That was fun. so much fun.
Speaking of the void,
Yes.
I was raised by a clinical psychologist, so I'm like, well, a lot of my interest besides philosophy is in psychology and the study of human suffering and abnormal psychology, and it's a huge problem.
Did you get to say fuck as a kid? Did your parent?
I was raised in a really inappropriate way by a father who didn't understand boundaries very well.
Okay.
And it worked out. Like I said, I haven't killed anybody yet, but I vividly remember when I was 6 years old and we did a double feature on a snow day of Predator and Terminator 2. And
how old were you?
Okay, I'm failing to see the problem. I don't.
Alien, Exorcist, Hannibal, Silence of the Lambs. These are my boys, my core constituency, right? So
my kids did that.
Really?
Yeah, right.
My kids did that. I don't know.
That's interesting.
Feeling like that's a little judged here.
No, I'm sorry. I grew up hella sheltered, big time sheltered.
Right?
Yeah.
Sorry, so how old are you talking about seeing these movies?
6. You said 6?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't show my 6-year-old those, but I've cut back severely on violent stuff for him because I find it affects his behavior a lot. So he's
sure.
That's.
I had to
I've chosen
outlaw
to.
TMNT in our house because my daughter was she actually
Was
raised
she
her.
Michelangelo?
No, I hope she goes for the brainy one. Thank
Donatello.
God.
Love Donatello.
Raphael's the badass.
my favorite.
That's the one.
Yeah.
I had
I
a
go
thing.
back and forth between Raphael and Donatello. I grew up on Teenage Mutant Ninja
Yeah.
Turtles, and I went back and
Yeah.
forth between the two of them.
This is the most important psych profiling test anyone could ever experience,
Yeah.
right?
I was
Way better than that Harry Potter garbage.
the Blue Power Ranger and fucking Donatello were my guys. That's
There you go.
fucking Jerry
It's an 80s
O'Connell
baby
from My
thing.
Secret
It's like
Identity. Yeah.
So
The Void. Let's talk more about the Void.
I wanted to ask you guys because you talk about the darkest timeline or the darkest moment in this timeline or whatever, and I seem to notice something right around when the election happened where everything started feeling really surreal, and I wonder if that was. I mean, not that we switched dimensions or anything necessarily.
We could have.
You don't know that we didn't.
True.
There's a thought in physics that every choice that every choice does happen, and then there's another universe created where each choice happened. So then there's the multiverse.
Multiverse theory.
That's the philosophical version of the multiverse.
Yeah.
That
Close
surreal
enough.
feeling. It reminds me of this. I don't know, like that feeling somehow there's a disconnect between what happened and what was supposed to be the way the things were.
Have you considered that you're experiencing PTSD? Because I think this is genuine. I'm not kidding.
Possible.
I think that there's whether or not you're actually experiencing PTSD, I think a national trauma has occurred, and an international trauma is probably occurring. I don't want to speak for non-Americans, but I think that there is a break with reality that happens when you're reminded of the fact that a large number of people in the world view the world enough in a certain way to be okay with someone like Donald Trump. And when that happens, that when you realize that you're coexisting with a bunch of people who have really horrifying views, that's traumatic. And then watching his behavior go on without punishment is a reoccurring trauma, especially for people who've dealt with narcissists in their day-to-day lives. He is a thoroughgoing malignant narcissist. And so anyone who has narcissistic trauma, which is anyone who's experienced a narcissist up close, is being re-traumatized by him on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And I think that the similarities here are with Trump getting elected, I did also sort of experience that surrealist kind of moment. And it's because your mind goes to an expectation that gets shifted to a completely different sequence of events that are going to happen in the upcoming future, right? There's only a couple of times in my entire life where that has happened. 9/11 was one of them, right? When I was watching the second tower get hit, I watched that live on TV, and
Me
it's
too.
your perception of the future completely changes.
Yeah.
Right. Because, humans are so good at pattern recognition, right? That's the thing that we are experts at.
Yeah.
And there's a pattern in which you're able to sort of foresee the events as they're going to unfold. And with Trump, you saw like, oh, what that's going to unfold, but there's no way that's going to happen. And then it does. And your brain goes, right. It's almost like, in, again, physics, right? There's refraction, right? When light passes from one medium to another, it bends. And it's almost like experiencing that bending, that refraction into a different medium.
Yeah. It's an interesting way to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Except refraction's predictable.
Yeah. And like he's a depressing prism where like every light that goes into that prism comes out horrible and black and just depressing. Like he's such a void of negative energy and he just projects it out to everyone.
Well, I think with Trump, during his candidacy and ever since he's been elected, the common thread, and I think only recently has been finally subsiding, the common thread was always like, oh, that's never going to happen. Oh, he's never going to make it through the primaries. Oh, he's never going to actually make it here. Right. Oh, he's never going to get elected. Oh, he's never going to actually do anything. Oh, he's not going to get his I kept hearing that like on a weekly basis, and it's like. Sure. And someone like Michael Moore was like, yeah, Trump is going to get elected. He said that months and months and months before he even won the primaries.
And he had a reasoned list as to why, and it wasn't that far off.
Yeah.
I like your point about the idea of Trump being elected as a sort of trauma, because it is true that you see this man get elected and as a woman, I'm like, does nobody care that he treats women like absolute shit? Like, how come nobody care? I'm so like, and this means that so many people don't give a fuck. Like, it just isn't on it's proof that it is on anyone's radar. Like, it's just.
Well, and when he mocked that physically disabled reporter.
Oh my God. How is that not career ending?
Because that happened, I believe, I could have this timeline wrong, but I think that came out before the whole pussy grabbing thing.
Yes, I think you're right.
Right.
And so when that happened, I was like, how was that? If that wasn't the end, nothing will be. That's
or making fun of the Gold Star family. Like that one kind of was. I mean, I mean, for conservatives in particular, you'd think that would just, if they don't care about disabled people or women, at least the military.
I mean, there was a problem with that Gold Star family that made it easier for them not to feel bad. Yeah, that's the problem.
Yes.
Right. Sorry, I killed your punchline.
No, you did great. I lobbed it to you.
I suppose it's hard. I mean, but you think people could still have some empathy for people who've lost a child. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Empathy
Nothing's worse than the liberal, right? That's the whole reason why Roy Moore is going to get elected, right?
Yeah.
Right.
These people are literally like, I believe that he is a pedophile, but a pedophile is better than a Democrat.
Trump said that.
I don't get
Trump literally said that. He was interviewed and he said, well, it's better than the Democrat. The Democrat's way worse because of these reasons.
Yeah.
And you know what? I want to be clear. The Democrats don't deserve any of our sympathy by keeping Franken in their midst. In the midst of these accusations, they are setting themselves up for not getting to crush Roy Moore in Alabama.
Yeah.
Like, if fucking Franken had resigned the minute the first story came out, like, they could have focused their pressure back on Moore, and like, it would have been a beautiful contrast. And instead, we've lost both the moral and the tactical high ground because Democrats, despite not being the horrible, immoral people that Republicans are still garbage at this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all that's true. Although I sort of, Aaron and I disagree a little bit with Franken.
I guess, like,
what's your disagreement?
I don't know.
So
what is your disagreement? Why do you think we should be around?
Yeah, we haven't actually talked about this. Well, I still haven't made a decision, and here's why. It's sort of a question, it's sort of the question of the difference between moral purity and moral, like, objectivity, right? It's to take the moral purity route means to tell Franklin he should resign, and part of me says, like, absolutely, yeah, I agree with that. But if he resigns and then there's a campaign that runs and a non-Democrat wins, and that person who gets into the seat then does all of these things and votes for all these things that are going to cause way more suffering.
Right, you're looking at it pragmatically, I sense.
But like, pragmatically, you're still wrong. None of those things are going to happen.
You don't know that.
I love you, GW.
Many outweigh the needs of the
fucking
few.
Nate Silver's like, look, he's going to be replaced by a Democrat because the person who replaces him is a governor. Because governor is a Democrat.
Wait, people don't believe Nate Silver anymore. What are you talking?
Oh, and everyone who doesn't believe Nate Silver wasn't paying enough attention. Let me be clear. I followed Nate Silver right up through the election, and he was one of the few people who was like, Donald Trump has a significantly high chance of winning the Electoral College while losing the popular vote. And he was goddamn right. He put it at 30%, and he was right. He was exactly right. So, like, everyone who thinks that Nate Silver is wrong misunderstands what Nate Silver was saying during the election.
He said there was a 30% chance of something happening, and then it happened. Wait, 30%, I mean...
30% is not an unusual number.
It's a number. What number
like
is unusual? I don't know what that means.
I don't know how your sportsing is, but like 30% is how many people hit on a regular basis in baseball or something.
I get it. I understand numbers. Like, if you'd held the election 3 times on that day, Donald Trump would have been elected once, and Clinton would have been elected twice. I get it. But roughly speaking,
so that's the universe we're in.
Yeah,
right.
The 1 out of 3.
30%.
The 1 out of 3.
Yeah.
So, Aaron, you think that Al Franken should resign then?
Absolutely. He should have resigned a week ago.
Damn.
And every day that he goes by that he hasn't resigned is another point in Roy Moore's election win in Alabama.
Is it just me or these guys? They rarely resign by choice. It's usually like they get like Louis C.K.'s show being cut and Kevin Spacey, same thing. You can force them, but if somebody's like at the pinnacle of power where they can't be forced, they don't.
They don't have to do shit.
To be fair, after the first accusation, Franken called for an ethics investigation on himself.
Yes, that's right.
Right. A guy that already knew that he had grabbed a bunch of women's bottoms while taking pictures with them called for an ethics investigation, hoping that the rest of them wouldn't come forward. I don't fucking care. I have no sympathy.
So what about...
I don't.
What about like Biden? I don't know if you guys have ever felt super creeped out every time Biden was near a woman, and it was like,
yes,
he was like Travolta on fucking Scarlett Johansson most of the time.
Yes, get it all out in the open. I know I have.
It's creepy as shit. It's creepy.
No, I know, and he should never be put in the list of people who should be Democratic candidates for president.
I don't think so.
Groby. And I'm so tired of the
like
groupie.
young girls too, like young. Like
I've never noticed this.
I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
Have no boundaries.
Yeah, he's like a Vogelcheck from SNL. It's like fucking mouth kissing all over the place.
Yeah.
And so the thing we have to figure out is like, are we currently in the U.S., the Republicans have everything. They have the governorships, they have the seats in the Senate, they have the White House, they have the seats in Congress. Like, they have everything right now. And with all the gerrymandering they have, although, yes, we've turned a couple of seats here and there, which has been great. Like, and with all of the judgeships that Trump is currently filling, he's already at 54 under his first year. Obama only had 20-something his first year.
Wow, okay.
If the Democrats had a better holding on a lot of what I just said, I would be 100% no problem Franklin being gone. But I'm terrified. I'm just terrified that, yes, we could sit here and be purists and feel good about ourselves, but then everything else is going to go down the fucking tubes because the points where it matters, right?
Yeah.
Exactly the whole reason why the Republicans are going to be voting for Roy Moore. Like, yeah, he's a pedophile, but I'm worried about the Supreme Court.
But are you not making a similar argument? Like, well, yeah, he's a sexual harasser, but it's better than a Republican.
Well, no, because I'm weighing how much
you got snaps.
I didn't snap.
You got snaps, though.
I got a snap? Oh, I've never had one.
No,
it's beatnik applause.
That's why I've been sort of battling with it, is because I've been trying to check myself, right? But
do you think maybe...
Let me fix the problem for you, GW. He's going to be replaced by a woman Democrat, by a Democratic governor, and then that female Democrat is going to win re-election in that state because we are very good on a state level, like statistically speaking.
Do you think though that she's going to be like shamed into resigning when she, I don't know.
She probably is going to grab a lot of penises.
Right. How many women how many females in
I
any
do it a
positions of
lot.
power?
I don't
waiting
want
for it.
anyone.
Mariah Carey?
Oh yeah,
It's
Mariah
gotta come
Carey's known for that.
inevitably.
That's true.
Mariah
Oh yeah,
Carey.
really? Does she?
I mean, Aaron, to
Yeah,
answer
actually,
your
yes.
question,
Her
to answer your
bodyguard.
question,
Yeah, that's
that
actually
seems
true.
a lot like someone who sounds really hopeful about the timeline, and I'm really concerned about your well-being at the moment.
No, like I'm fine because I'm going to
Shots
see
fired.
violence in the streets when Donald Trump refuses
Yeah.
to resign and the police force comes for him. Like,
I mean, we're
I've got
having-
my worst timeline locked down, so I should stick
Is that-
to my moral views, which is Franken should have fucking resigned in the first place.
Can I just ask something? Is it possible, GW, that you just kind of like Franken because he's charismatic, he's liberal, he's funny, he's like if you see him at these
I've never found him funny, actually.
really, but as a politician though, compared to other, like relative to
And
other
to be clear,
politicians, come on.
I probably like Franken a lot more than GW does.
Oh.
Like,
Interesting.
there's a video of Al Franken drawing the American, the map of the USA by memory. And he draws the full border of the USA perfectly by memory, and then all the state lines by memory, while describing how he memorized the map at one point. And it's a fascinating video of a super intelligent person who I'm really angry at right now and who needs to resign and get his shit together and then do something else good for the world that isn't being a senator right now.
The other part of me, like, and this is completely unrelated to politics, and I think is a more broader skeptical atheism kind of a question, and that is the whole sort of issue with punishment, right? And I'm wondering, like, for people who are sexual offenders, even as bad as Roy Moore and Donald Trump, I'm not saying that anyone should get a pass of any kind, but is the system supposed to be that you do something bad and you should be ostracized your entire life? And I'm speaking from sort of a point of actually personally understanding this with my brother, who's currently serving 12 years in prison right now.
Okay.
So, like, he's never going to get a job for the rest of his life, and he's probably going to deal with a 70% recidivism rate, where he's probably going to go back to jail for a third strike. And in California, you get third strikes and you're out, which means he's probably on his next offense going to face 30 to 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's a valid question, though.
I think that,
Absolutely.
I think that there's two levels to that, though, right? Like, your brother is on a level where the system is designed so that he can't be redeemed, no matter how good he does and no matter how hard he tries.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I need to add one more variable to this, and that is, after he was convicted, new evidence came to light, and even the prosecuting attorney went to the judge with my brother's attorney to the judge and said, "I think we have the wrong guy." And the judge was like, "No retrial." Even the prosecuting attorney was like, "We got the wrong person."
And he's still screwed, even though he was wrongfully.
He spent 20 months in solitary confinement.
Oh my God.
See, and that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a whole level
other.
of fucked up that exists in your country that
And
does
ours.
well, but like not like that.
Doesn't
not like
exist in most others. We have the highest prison rate per capita in the world.
Yeah. We're really good at it. We're number one. America's number one. I'm
You
just
guys
saying
are
we're the
so
best.
good at that. Good job.
Our prison industrial complex is huge.
The best. No one does it better than us.
That's right.
Yes.
Gold plated.
But back to my other point.
Sorry,
What was point two?
no
What was
worries.
point two?
Yeah. Point six.
It's just that, like, a guy like Franken, he's not facing that same level of, I don't know, lack of redemption. Like, if he comes out with an apology and he does some good work for a few months even, he's going to be accepted by society, right, 100%. And it's just going to be like, okay, he was shitty, he atoned for it. There's different levels based on your socioeconomic status and the color of your skin.
And the severity of what you're accused of having done.
Right. And
right.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if he was accused of actually raping somebody, that's a criminal offense you could be charged with and then go through the justice system. But sexual harassment isn't really a criminal offense. Depending on how far it's got, you know what I mean. So it's.
But I've been hearing people equating Franken and Roy Moore as the same.
They're not the same, but they look the same when their tribes gather around them the same way. It's indistinguishable from an outside perspective.
Particularly to groups who are choosing which tribe to be a part of, right?
Yeah. And I 100% agree that we need to develop, like, now that we're in a phase of our culture where we're actually believing that this stuff is happening, we need to develop proper metrics for distinguishing degrees of bad behavior and also degrees of willingness to address that behavior and be rehabilitated. Because I totally agree that, like, I come from a no free will, moral luck perspective. Like, the reason that men are acting this way is because culture has really badly trained them how to deal with members of the opposite sex. And like, we should be sympathetic to them. Like, I'm angry at Frank, but I'm more angry at the culture that is enabling him. And I want to see him resign as part of a process of accepting consequences and coming to terms with his behavior, so that we can see the right way to come to terms with behavior and develop better behavior instead.
Yeah. I think that's valid.
That's a great point. Do you guys want to stick around for another half hour?
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick ad break. And
long
we'll
enough
be
to
back.
refill my bourbon ad break?
Yeah, go pee if you have to.
Probably approximately 2 minutes.
Great. I love this real time thing. I can do all the things. It's like when I used to rate, like gaming again.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we'll take a break and then we'll come back to Aaron and GW from the Embrace the Void podcast.
If you like what we're doing and want to help us keep the lights on, go become a patron at patreon.com/brainstorm podcast. You can hear the bonus half hour that we record every episode and get a shout out when you support the show. Become a patron for just $1 an episode at patreon.com/brainstorm podcast. Or you can support the show by ordering a t-shirt, mug or other gear from our store at caffeepress.ca/brainstorm podcast gear. If you can't afford to become a patron or buy gear, then why not give us a rating or write a review on iTunes or Stitcher? Every rating makes it easier for people to find us. Thanks for your support.
We are given one life, full of billions of small and large decisions. To be somebody, to change, to be kind, to give hope, to become a better person, and to leave a lasting impact on this planet. It is a decision to be made every single day while your heart is still beating. We've made our decision. Absence of Clothing, atheist and science-based apparel and merchandise, donating 50% of our profits to charity. Look good and feel good, without God. Check us out at absenceofclothing.com and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest for discount codes and other sweet swag.
Use the code BRAINSTORM at absenceofclothing.com and get 10% off. The Hardcore Skeptic Examines is a bi-monthly documentary-style podcast that includes interviews, research, and commentary from your host, Cory Johnston. That's me. As the host of the Brainstorm podcast, I've spent the last 3+ years trying to spread critical thinking and skepticism while having fun. This project is intended to look at some of those same topics covered by Brainstorm, but a bit deeper. With the long intervals between episodes and the long format, I'm hoping to provide good information that educates as well as entertains. Check out my Patreon for more details at www.patreon.com/hardcoreskeptic or follow my Twitter at hardcoreskeptic.
Hi, I'm Justin Clark, the host of Reason Revolution. It is a weekly podcast where I often have a guest, often in the secular and atheist movements. We have thoughtful and engaging conversations. I also do news and commentary from the atheist and secular humanist perspectives, as well as answer listener feedback. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. Go over there and give us a subscribe and give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/Reason Revolution.
All right, and we're back. So I guess the break always kind of interrupts whatever conversation we were having, but everybody kind of needed to do things quickly. So.
It's good to digest all of the horrible that we just experienced.
Yeah, that's right.
Can I ask a question, maybe along the lines of what we were saying before the break?
Absolutely.
So one concern I have is when somebody is accused of committing a crime or doing something morally distasteful, like sexual harassment or whatever, oftentimes they don't actually get charged with anything. I'm thinking, like, for example, Bill Cosby, right? So, or whoever, right? I mean, Bill Cosby's name is now dirt for all intents and purposes. Everyone believes that he's done what he's done, and blah blah blah. But I'm just wondering, what are we allowed to do as a culture to as you know, as you brought up, GW, kind of run people's names through the mud and have them basically be totally unable to work again, unable to contribute to society again. Like they're not going through an official process like a judicial system where they're getting tried and convicted and there's real evidence and they go to jail. This is like sort of it's the court of public opinion. Yeah, it's a court, but it's kind of permanent and it's not. And it's just, and the thing is that a judicial system, an official judicial system, at least tries to not, in theory, not convict people who are not actually guilty. They try to actually require evidence in order to convict somebody. So in an egregious case like Bill Cosby, it seems pretty obvious that he's guilty. But what about in a case where, like the person gets accused of something and they deny it and... Okay, I mean, I tend to skew towards believing the victim, but what if we're wrong? And what if we're ruining this person's life for, like, what? I don't know. Like, what if we're wrong and we're not putting them through an official process here? It's just... Yeah,
this is happening in universities all across the U.S. And again, a lot of people use this argument on the sort of MRA side, and I have to put this disclaimer that I think in 95% of the cases, the woman is 100% right and should be believed. But 5% of the time, and I'm making up those numbers, right? A small percentage of the time,
it's actually 98%.
Great, perfect.
Like 2%
right?
false.
So that 2% of that time, the woman is believed and is not telling the truth, and these kids are getting expelled from schools. So I think it's definitely already happening. And it's sort of, to get to your point, the whole reason why the judicial system was even created was to stop people from burning other people at the stake just because they perceived a slight offense.
Right.
And there are other countries that still continue to do something like this, where the family of the victim essentially gets to decide the outcome of the accused, and it could be even like they are home in a home arrest until such time that their family says it's okay. And so we're slowly going back to this court of public opinion is deciding the fates of these people because things like statutory limitations are being exceeded, and it's getting worse.
Or just the burden, or just the burden of evidence isn't being met. Like going back to the Jian Ghomeshi case here, he was charged. There was a trial. 5 victims testified, but the judge didn't find their testimony compelling enough or met the standard in order to convict him. And most legal experts that I read said that was the correct decision. In that, not to say that I don't believe the victims, but that they didn't have sufficient proof to get a conviction according to her. Anyway, so like.
But let me ask you: do you believe that he did the thing?
Definitely, yes.
Do you believe that Cosby did the thing?
Yes.
Should that near certainty alter your behavior in regard to comedy relating to Bill Cosby or to consuming Bill Cosby's material or people who
I can't watch it. It's disgusting.
Cosby?
There's no way.
I still like the program that Jian Ghomeshi was associated with on CBC. It's still called Q. And even yesterday, I was driving around and it was like,
Q came on.
Hey, this is Q. And I was like, with Jian Ghomeshi, like, change the fucking name of the program. Like, I still physically, like, I have that visceral reaction to, when he came to town to do his show live, I got to meet him and he hugged me and I hugged him back because
you hugged Jian Ghomeshi
in his denim.
I feel icky knowing you.
Splendor. I also listened to fucking Moxie Fruvis.
Hold on, Aaron.
I touched him too, Angela. Don't worry.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Thank you.
I want to pull in Aaron here and try to come up with a different scenario with essentially the same problem. right?
Okay.
Let's say that we all work at like an accounting firm,
Okay.
right? And one of the people that we work with, it comes out as a Nazi, as a neo-Nazi, 100%. But he does his job fine and well. He doesn't bring that into work. Should he get fired?
No.
We know you know the answer, Aaron. Let the rest of the class say something.
Oh,
Jeez.
sorry. I didn't mean that in a certainty kind of way. Like,
yeah, Aaron and I have
everyone show your work and all, but like, I don't want to jump to the end of the book or anything. I mean, like.
Hold on, Aaron. Let them answer.
You know what? Let him. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you have a basis for firing him, and this is his livelihood. This is how he gets by. I mean, but I'm not going to invite him to the pub with me for drinks on Friday, right? Like, you're gonna be ostracized
It would
socially,
make for
right?
good drinks. I think if he was a reasonable Nazi and you could have a conversation with him.
I think I would have to find a new job because I don't think I could work with that person.
Really?
Yes. I would have to find and I work with some racists and I work with some pretty hardcore sexists, and I would still have, if somebody was an out and out racist or Nazi, I would still have to find a new job.
Corey's been dealing with purging the shitlords from his life.
And here's the thing that is really interesting, right? The people that are reformed people who used to be Nazis, or they used to be in the Westboro Baptist Church, or they used to be whatever.
Yes.
The way that they sort of quote unquote convert people is by talking to them, right?
Yeah.
And so I would be the person that would invite that neo-Nazi out to the pub.
I'd be honestly,
and to put my money where my mouth is, I recently found out a coworker is super into Jordan B. Peterson, listens to his podcast all the time. I am going to try to find a time where we can go and have lunch.
Can you record that?
Maybe.
We'll do a JPP episode.
Can you do that?
I'm pretty sure their brain is all cobwebs and hamster wheels, because I don't even know how you could listen to that shit and even understand what the fuck he's saying. And then when you do, and you're like, that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard. Are you really saying that? I guess you are.
His epistemology is really garbage, and everything from there doesn't go well.
But he's just a fucking moron. I have nothing. I'm sorry, I don't know how to philosophize.
Yeah. I mean, unlike him, who is like his finger far away from the pulse of epistemology, like the question y'all are raising is a really good one. Like, how do we address this epistemic problem of what do we believe about these people who can't be tried in court or aren't going to be tried in court,
and
but we know these
shaming.
accusations, and how do we address it, and how do we address any of it? And I think we're going to have to develop a nuanced understanding of how to address it that has to do with the severity, the number of accusations, how they respond to those accusations, what consequences occur or don't. We've got to develop a pragmatic approach to addressing this sort of stuff, because we absolutely have to root it out, because it's just pervasive and it's horrible. It's killing women's careers. And that's why I'm sympathetic. Sorry.
And it's also poisoning communities, like atheist, skeptic podcasting communities. And that's a place where a lot of people leaving religion go to heal, and they're finding the same
toxicity.
Exactly. And that I think is hard as a woman. It's hard to deal with that because it makes you just want to be like, fuck y'all, I'm just going to go live in my windowless basement.
And one of the reasons why I'm still on the fence about Franken is that part of me does say, yes, he should resign, and hopefully that as part of him resigning and multiple other people being resigned and multiple other men being, doxxed essentially, that women will start to become more comfortable with coming out sooner, which means that these problems will be addressed when they should, which is much, much closer to, because I think it is a fair thing to say that, I was accused 20 years ago of grabbing a woman's butt in the middle of a crowd where I was meeting thousands of people, and the person is not releasing their name for a completely understandable reason. I don't remember who this is or whatever. That's a completely legitimate thing for a person to say. How could you possibly expect any one of us to remember someone we met even just 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Actually, I think the goal should actually be not that women are more able to come forward, but that these things don't happen in the first place.
Right.
We shouldn't have a reactive policey culture on this. It should be no, that's not something we do. Like, it's just not a thing. Like,
is there a progression from the reactive, hey, let's automatically punish everybody who does this or is accused of this, to the proactive, hey, let's not do this?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the after the fact stuff is a stopgap, right? Ultimately, we've got to address the problem of toxic masculinity and the culture that allows men to get away with this kind of behavior and tells them that, right? We were talking before the show about Kingsman and, like, you know, at the end of the
butt
movie
stuff.
where you win butt stuff, right? Men literally are raised to believe that if you do all the, like, there's a beautiful line in 6 Feet Under where a woman says to the main character at one point, you think if you put in good behavior, life is like a slot machine where happiness comes out.
Yeah.
And it's like the men are raised to believe if you put in good behavior, sex with attractive women comes out. Right? And then,
or like full on anal. Like, yeah.
Right.
I bought
Like,
you dinner. Why can't I put my penis in your bum?
Jesus Christ.
I mean, that's a sound to me. I don't see the problem.
I mean, like, whatever.
That's a soundbite.
You've been traumatized by being kidnapped and
episode
watching a bunch of
name.
people's heads explode, but, like, clearly you want it in the butt. So just, like, we're all okay with this.
Yeah.
I mean, we all saw what she was wearing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
She was asking for it.
She literally
Including the
asked.
old
To be fair,
guy
she
who's
literally
watching
asked for it in the movie.
Yes.
Right.
No, but it was the idea that of this woman who's like, this is what she wants to do to please the man who saves her. You know what I mean? Like, this is
Yep.
this kind of fallacy of
Or like, yeah. Same thing with blowjobs.
So it seems
Same
to some
thing.
extent that this is obvious that a narrative of like that has been throughout our media and our upbringing, and that this has brought us to a point where men expect sex or anal for just being people, just for being not shitty.
yeah.
Yep.
And I wonder, like, what do you think of the argument that many people have that say that we're just inserting our own opinions into this, and that nothing.
Nice word choice.
Well done.
I did not even do that.
He
on
loves puns. He's really good at them.
He loves puns.
Slowly and gently inserting
Yeah.
our opinions about what.
Not
specifically-
forcing. Maybe.
No.
but well lubricating those opinions.
Yeah. Do y'all have special low temperature lubricants up in Canada?
They can't really be water based because it'll freeze if it gets too cold.
Are they made?
You can't
from
do it in
seal
the
oil
igloo.
or something?
You
I
can't
don't
do
know,
it in the
eel
igloo
blood?
tonight, honey.
Dude, I seriously just left my son's toothpaste in the car all day, and I was like, oh, fuck, I don't know if it's going to come out.
Cory, you had a question somewhere back
Sorry.
there.
Something about words violating people's anuses. Go.
It's an entitlement thing, though. It's an entitlement thing.
There are
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
for many of us that seems like an obvious narrative that's come through our media and that has adapted our society based on it. But a lot of people think that media doesn't have that impact in the same way. So I wonder, how do we explain that to those people?
How do we prove to them that media has an impact?
Yeah.
Well, you use the same argument that they try to use, like, oh, video games are the reason why our kids are violent. And I go, well, not really. So you just use their own arguments against them, which is the funnest in my opinion.
Yeah.
But that's like saying media doesn't impact. But like marketing, right?
Yeah.
Like, does anyone think that marketing doesn't work?
Well, obviously, the companies know that it works,
Yeah,
so that otherwise they
know
wouldn't
that
pay
it
billions
works,
of dollars for it, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And you know what marketing is? Applied psychology and sociology. So the idea that culture doesn't impact behavior is nonsense on stilts. Like,
That's a good.
it takes
I like
2
that.
seconds to prove that, like, just follow the money. Right?
Yeah.
So
they wouldn't put billions of dollars and it didn't work.
No. And then the long form answer is that like, human behavior is radically connected to how our society trains that kind of behavior. And you can clearly train men to be better or worse with regard to issues like consent. And the fact that like Donald Trump's Access Hollywood tape is not a freak of nature, but well within the bounds of the way that men within our culture are taught to brag about sexual exploitation is an important factor. Like he was brought up to believe that. He's an empty shell. He doesn't have any thoughts of his own. Like clearly someone put that there, and it was a mix of his horrible parents and culture.
Yeah.
I think one of the ways that we sort of fight it is what we've been saying before, which is creating some sort of stopgap with, outing people who have done it in the past, even if it was 20 years in the past. But then also I think we need to change the way that we raise our boys, right? Just like, little girls used to be taught at very young ages how to behave around young men, and boys will be boys. Yeah. We need to teach our young boys how to treat other people, how to treat women. And that needs to start at a very young age, right?
Go ahead.
Sorry, this is a story I've said a couple of times, but just so that you all know it, right? My dad was a truck driver, he was a locksmith, he was a Vietnam vet, Marine. He was a tough guy in my eyes. When I was 6 years old, my cat got run over and killed. And I was on the couch crying, and my dad came up to me, my big, tough dad came up to me and said, "It's okay to cry," right? Even though I was raised in a very stoic male, toxic masculinity environment, that defined my character. Was that moment that my tough, strong Marine dad told me it was okay to cry.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like that story. That puts a lot of pressure on me as a parent. Like, I don't know what fucking moment he's going to fucking stick, and he's going to fucking tell it on a podcast in 30 years. Like, my mom told me to shut the fuck up already. And
look, my dad's a clinical psychologist. My parents got divorced when I was 7, and my parents did a really good job of keeping their emotional shit away from me during the divorce. But it also gave me the impression that, like, emotional shit is to be managed on the side and not expressed.
Yeah.
Right? So not until many years later was I comfortable, even though I was like a very empathic person because I was raised by those people. So what I'm saying is, don't freak out about it. Like, people are going to be who they're going to be. And like at the end of the day, like, you're going to be a good parent. It's going to be fine. So like,
or it's going to be terrible.
It might be a terrible timeline there.
I'm still really bad with emotions. Like, I worry that I'm sending the wrong signals to my son.
Worry's an emotion.
Well, yeah, but I don't express it much outwardly.
Yeah. And, you don't do the Woody Allen.
Yeah. No,
there's a really incredible video that's circulated Facebook a couple of times, and it's like it's this black man who's like the head of this dojo or whatever, and there are these really young boys all black, right? And they're like, this one kid is trying to break this board, and he like can't do it very well. And he's like starting to cry, and the guy basically like, it's a beautiful moment because you don't see this, right? Which is a very strong black man sort of telling this young black man, like, it's okay to cry. Like, you know, you got to push through the pain. And I know it's difficult and it's just like life. And he sort of gives this whole, like, this is how, like, life is going to be hard, but you need to push through it. And then you see him succeed at the very end. And it's fucking gorgeous. And I cry every time I see it.
That's fucking awesome, man.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's it. That's, I mean, as a parent, I know I can acknowledge this stuff. And I when I talk to my son, I'm very much like, yeah, we need to be able to cry and we need to be able to express ourselves. But I don't personally do any of that. So
you should totally cry. Lay your head on my shoulder.
So it's kind of.
I know not why you cry, but it is something that I never do.
So it's very mixed kind of signals.
I've never seen my father cry. I've never seen my father cry. Right, but he told me it was okay.
But the message got through anyway. Okay.
We do a lot of things in our, like, my son's only 6, so we do a lot of things to help him express his feelings in positive ways because he was doing a lot of acting out. So, like, he has these circular construction paper things like hanging from his doorknob from yarn, and each one has a different face. One has like a happy face, one has a sad face, one has an angry face. And then like if he's really mad at me, instead of like throwing stuff or having a tantrum, he'd be like, he walks over to his door and chooses the mad face and hangs it on his door and goes in. And he's like, I'm angry.
Well, I think that's a really important part of being a parent too, because you're validating your child. You're not necessarily like saying you should like be like this or be like that. It's just like, I know you're mad. And it's just I think half of it is just letting them be pissed off or sad or whatever, and teaching them the ways to healthily work through those emotions, because and that's what I try to do with my daughter. And I mean, she's 5 and she's a very emotional kid. And I mean, she wears her heart on her sleeve, and half the time I just hug her. If she's pissed off or mad, or sad, I just hug her. I don't like, I'm so sorry. I just like, hey, I'm sorry you're having a shitty day. Like, come here, I got you.
Yeah, we have to, like, as parents, like, be okay with our kids experiencing suffering, right? And helping them figure out how to deal with that is the more important thing,
That's
right?
right.
By age 2, we have experienced every emotion from pure, unadulterated joy to, like, vicious anger, I want to murder something. By age 2, we've experienced the entire range of human emotion.
The whole gamut, yeah.
One thing I
wanted to add about teaching our boys to treat women better. I think we also need to teach our boys that women's voices matter, that their words matter.
No, they don't.
No?
That's not true.
No?
Women don't. I mean,
thanks for proving my point.
We do debunk myths on the show, Angela. Women's voices don't matter. Common misconception.
And teaching girls that they don't have to put up with shit. I was taught that, like, I was essentially like, here you go. All you are. I wasn't supposed to go to college for a fucking degree. Yeah. I was supposed to go to college to find a husband. That was what I was taught. And so I mean, we need to teach girls, fucking go, do your thing. Be a fucking paleontologist, marine biologist, whatever the fuck you want to do. If you want to get married, go for it. But that doesn't have to be the period of your life. Like, that doesn't have to be the be all and the end all, that you get the picket fence and that you get the fucking 2.3 children. Like, it's not that. I think we need to teach women or teach girls who eventually become women, that you're a whole person without a dude. You don't need a guy to complete your life.
Nothing makes me happier than when my daughter says, I'm never getting married.
At UVA, we call that an MRS degree, by the way.
Yeah. Yep.
I totally agree with you, and I think that it ties together what you're saying and what he was saying about the crying, and the fact that the real, I think, synthetic position is to say is to untether all of these different kinds of behavior from cultural notions of what is particularly assigned to a particular gender.
Yes.
So men should be able to experience emotions, but at the same time, they shouldn't feel the need to expressively cry if they don't feel compelled to do so.
Yes.
And at the same time, women should be able to feel okay with finding someone at college who they decide to fall in love with and marry, but also feeling like that isn't the goal of being at college.
Yes.
So just separate all of these things. The whole,
because the goal is to just breed.
Right.
Fucking give birth.
The healthy version of masculinity should go away is the idea that masculinity and femininity are concepts where we assign certain virtues to particular genders. Yeah. And we say that if you're this gender, you should optimize these particular virtues. Mm-hmm. And that's stupid. Right. On its face, it's just stupid. Mm-hmm. And so as modern secularists, we should be at the forefront of saying, whatever gender you are, engage in whatever behavior feels healthy and natural to you.
Yeah.
Where I work, I mentor 3 graduate lighting design students. And as part of my mentorship, they're all women. And I push them hard. And I push them and I tell them that it is not going to be an easy world because the industry is very male dominated, and that I'm not going to take it easy on them because I want them to be fucking successful. And when they slack, I tell them that they're slacking. And when they do well, I tell them that they're doing well. But I've kicked their asses for the last 2.5 years so that hopefully by the end of their tenure here that they will be able to be very successful sort of professionals in the field, and to like one of the things that a lot of women sort of have been trained since a very young age was to sort of say sorry all the time. Yes. I yell at them when they say sorry. I go, don't fucking say you're sorry. Or they do things where like when they're the one in charge, when they're the lighting designer, which is supposed to be the one person who's at the top of the food chain, and then they're asking the lower people permission for stuff, I go, don't do that shit. Say it as a statement. Don't ask it as a question, right? When I am sort of pretending to be one of their underlings and they ask me a question, I go, say it as a statement.
Yeah.
Like I'm not the one who's making the decision. You make the decisions. Say it as a statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, queen.
Fair enough, except that you have to keep in mind that for a woman to be successful in a position of authority, she can't actually just act the same way a man in that position would.
Oh, so good.
Because she won't elicit that same, like look at like Hillary Clinton, for example, you know, you won't elicit that same response from people. You have to walk a very delicate, I mean, I have a job where I have to tell people what to do, and I can't do it in the same way as my male colleagues. I have to find a different line.
I 100% agree. I'm sort of generalizing because I say it constantly. But like, for instance, there was a time where one of my lighting designers and then one of the master electricians, who is also a young woman, basically like one of them was like, oh, do you think we should do this? Well, what do you think we should do? Well, what do you think we should do? Well, what do you think? It literally went back and forth 6 times.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, Deb, you need to make a decision. You're the one who's in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I mean, no, I hear like there's definitely a place to encourage assertiveness and to encourage, you know, and to establish that authority. But I'm just pointing out that you can't. If like, I mean, the people who are transgendered and they've gone from being seen as a woman to being seen as a man, or vice versa, will report this, and you really can't elicit the same social response from people by acting the same way.
Totally. I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is going to sound like the stupid male who's been clueless for a long time.
You never sound that way, Cory.
Is this the reason that there's this stereotype that women can never make a decision when they're asked to do a thing? Like,
I think a little bit, because I think if a woman says this is the way things are, the way that a man says this is the way things are, she'll be viewed differently. Yeah. And she's 100% right about this.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, for example, if I was leading a team, I would try to get everyone to come to a consensus and everyone feel like it was all of our ideas that we gathered at that, like, you know what I mean? That's for example, I would, like, you know, depending on what, but like, I really can't go into a meeting and be like, guys, this is how we're going to do it, because that's shit. Because I don't have the social capital to do that. I have to, if I care about, like, I work in a healthcare setting, if I care about whatever ends I want to meet that's best for the patient, I need to think about this in a way that, because my end goal is to get the thing done that I know is the best thing to do, and my training tells me the best thing to do, but I can't just come in and say, no, it's this. Yeah. I just can't.
Yeah. I think in my instance, it's a little different only because, like, they are the designer and they're the ones who are creating this thing, and the other people's jobs are to implement their design.
Yeah.
This actually really frames a lot of my own behavior at my job. I have a female coworker, which is really unusual in the oil industry. And when I write down a thing and I say, this is what needs to be done on your shift, and her shift partner, who is also a guy, they just do it. But when they write something down, then me and my shift partner, we often question it and second guess it, and like we're all like she writes it in the same way.
Fucking patriarchy.
Right. Right.
But you're so sexist, Cory.
We react in a different way. Like,
you do. It's not conscious, right? It's
it frames my own behavior.
None of your behavior is free, but this is one of the ones that's predictable.
Right.
Like if I don't end an email where I'm saying, okay, guys, this is how it's going to be. If I don't end the email with, please let me know if you have any questions or concerns, I'm going to get shit on. I know this. So
I want to buy you a
cetera.
drink like every time I think about the fact that like women have to deal with this shit. Like I teach logic and persuasion, and like I can teach you like here are the rational arguments, but I also have to teach you that like within a societal situation where you are located in a variety of factors will impact how people hear what you are saying. And you are 100% right that the women in this world
and I don't need your validation to know that.
No. And you don't want that validation. But like I 100% want to back you up. Like for any man who's listening to this thinks that you're like talking as a woman, like fuck you. Like seriously.
Yeah. They can think that if they want. Is that right?
Pitch it differently. And like she's right. She's 100% right, and I cede the rest of my time to the women who will tell you these stories.
No, it's true. It's just how it goes. It's just I don't know. Like I was talking to my boss. Like I had a situation where I was like I'm hired for technical expertise in radiation therapy. That's what I'm supposed to do. And I was asked to consult, and I was like, no, you guys shouldn't do this. The image quality is going to be shit. Like, this is my job. This is the thing. And people for whom like, this was not their area of expertise overrode me and did something totally different. And I remember going to my boss and being like, I don't understand. The image quality was shit. I was right. Why? And he's like, Lisa, I gotta tell you, like, being right counts for maybe 1%. You gotta have the social capital to do what you want to do, and it's true. And actually, just you gotta figure out how to accomplish what you need to accomplish. Yeah.
Every time you walk into a room, you probably have to prove that you know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like this is predictable, for fuck's sake.
And I literally never know what I'm talking about, and I never have to prove it.
Right? I'm a white male, and I get handed jobs, like hand over fist. It's stupid, and like I can't. I have to make light of it because otherwise we all just end up crying. But like,
I think
fucked up.
I don't know if you saw. I think it came out maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Tina Fey wrote I think it was an introduction to her book or something. Anyways, it's basically an article, huh?
Her book, Bossy Pants.
Yes, and I think it's all over the internet. Anyways, and she talks about how like the advice she gives women is just be hyper competent. Just like, you know, if there's like you know, they had, and that's what I try to do is I just try to know things so that and eventually when you know enough stuff and you are indispensable enough, people will call you when there's a fucking problem because they know you might help them solve it. So you gotta push through it, and you gotta just learn as much as you can and be as competent as you can. That's what I would recommend.
I know it. Like Master and Commander, that movie with Cuba Gooding Jr. And you know, it's like, you know, if you're in a minority position, you have to be perfect. You have to be exceptional in every way and flawless, and like no one can complain about any features of you. And then you can eventually build up enough social capital that you might help the other people to like not have to face that on a daily basis.
Or it may not be enough at all. Obama.
Obama.
Perfect
he
example.
was pretty successful. Come on.
No,
he didn't do too bad.
No,
and then
but
the guy,
perception from a lot of other people.
Yeah, no,
like,
it's true.
Like, it was an atrocity the day he wore a brown suit.
Yeah.
And it's not.
I don't remember
it's
that.
Not an accident. It's not an accident that
because he wore a brown suit, and everyone also lost their
What's
shit.
wrong with brown? I'm confused.
Because every president always wore a blue or black suit.
It's inappropriate.
And he wore a brown suit once, and everyone lost their shit.
Yeah.
But like the reality is, the guy who built his popularity on birtherism towards Obama became the president after Obama.
Oh, it's been such an insult for him. And he went out with such grace, though. Anyway, you know what I mean? They were so. Like, you know, I remember hearing that he told his staff to be as welcoming as possible. Don't, you know, no booby traps anywhere. No, none of that. Like, just do your jobs, and you know, so much dignity. That couple.
It tells you everything you need to know about white lash, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's white lash? I'm not cool.
You know, the pushback against having a black president.
I appreciated the anti-Trump protesters when he went to Hawaii recently. The people that were holding signs saying "Welcome to Kenya." Yeah. I really, really enjoyed that.
Sorry,
how awesome and flawless was Michelle Obama?
Oh yeah,
like, he was probably to like in recent memory the best first lady we've ever had.
Yes.
I love her.
And like, good news is, after all the violence, the impeachment, like there will be another Democratic president, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris president, who like, you know,
who are you hoping to be president? Sorry.
Elizabeth Warren. I think it's Warren and Harris. Kamala Harris is.
That would be pretty awesome.
Warren would be awesome. Isn't she like old and shit?
She is, but
not too
who the fucking
old.
cares?
And like,
let's not be ageist.
I love her. I love her.
She understands economic inequality, and like economic inequality is the linchpin that we need to be working on in America.
She's an actual fucking smart person with balls, like, I mean, like, and a backbone. Like, I don't know what else to say about it.
That's why when people were like, before Clinton, Hillary had a running mate, people were like, oh, it should be Warren. I was like, no, it shouldn't. Warren is doing great work in the Senate right now. It should be Warren as president, not Warren as VP.
Yeah.
And Warren didn't need to be tainted by Clinton, honestly, like, and people's dislike for her. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And she brings in the Bernie bros, and we just need to keep pushing a woman for president because, for fuck's sake, this is embarrassing.
It's about fucking time.
Well, it shouldn't be a woman for a woman's sake. It should
if
be
Warren
a good
gets
woman.
elected,
it's not a woman for a woman's sake. It's there are a vast number of competent women, and it's inappropriate that we haven't achieved this. And the fact that we picked a sex offender instead is.
I would take any
it's a new low.
Any competent person at this point. I don't care race, gender,
a dead body,
species,
a body of
care
water, like body of water.
So when Warren gets elected, are you guys going to change the name of your podcast to like Sunshine and Lollipops or something?
Yes.
I mean, there's always going to be a need for understanding the darkness that we all experience, and so like. Even in good times, we have to be like vigilant of how we cope with our existential crises.
I will say this: if Warren becomes president, Aaron, you have to concede that you have lost the argument.
I will concede, like, if we don't burn this motherfucker down in the period of like impeachment and like subsequent election, then like I will concede that we're okay for the moment.
Wow. Very generous of you. Wow.
Right.
I'm going to hold you to that.
So
I mean,
philosophers don't ever concede that they've lost the argument.
And like our whole careers
adjust
are
their
based
arguments.
on staking out extreme positions. So like. I'm going to hold this position until I die because that's my moral responsibility as a philosopher. But like, you know, everything's fine. Like I'm like Sartre. Like I haven't lived a sad day for the most part. Like I'm fine. Everything's great. But like we all experience existential crises. So let's talk about it.
Perfect.
That's fair.
So we're coming up on an hour and a half. Well, actually, we're a little past. Where can people find your stuff?
We're on, I mean, like, everywhere that I exist on a way too many hours a day. Like, right, we're on Twitter at ETV Pod, and we're you can find us on all the podcast catchers at Embrace the Void, and we're on Facebook at Embrace the Void. And if you really, really, really love arguing, and especially if you're a conservative, because we need more conservatives, I have an argument group called Monster Island on Facebook. Make sure you answer all the questions, and I will accept you immediately, and we want your conservative voices, so check us out.
I had to leave that group.
Why?
It's horrifying.
It's not okay.
I'm very interested now. I might be joining.
I'm writing that down.
I could not stand it.
Monster Island, answer all about questions, or I won't invite you. If you just say, "Are you a bot?" No, I won't invite you because the bots have figured out that question now. So, answer the question about morality.
The whole group is all about like being able to sort of engage in debate and like arguing. But like the only thing we don't tolerate is personal attacks.
Yeah, and it's based on a libertarian model, so I don't moderate any of it. So like,
it gets
really
awful.
horrifying things happen.
What's it called? Monster
Island. Oh my god!
Yeah, check it out.
I was
looking it up right now.
I don't know, maybe 4 weeks. I was in there.
Yeah, any conservative fans? Because we need conservatives.
I doubt we have conservative fans, but it's possible.
I am by far the most conservative panel member, and I don't know.
I genuinely value differences of opinion, and it's hard to get a group to stay balanced.
when I put that into Facebook, I just put monster, and then it's the fourth thing.
Yeah,
Fourth.
pretty good.
It's so since this is a skeptical podcast, I've been trying to make an effort to try to help skeptics with one thing. I think that a lot of skeptics have this problem, and that is essentially being hypocritical skeptics, right? I think a true skeptic always questions everything and is willing to accept any possible answer, but also not willing to accept statements made by anyone without sort of substantial amount of evidence or the person being of an expert background, whatever that may be. And I spent years listening to Rush Limbaugh because I wanted to understand that perspective. Even though I disagree with 99% of what he said, I wanted to understand and be able to sort of listen and engage with that sort of perspective. And I listened to him for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And so I hope as skeptics, we can all, in order to embrace that label, you have to be willing to embrace ideas that you may think that you wouldn't agree with.
Can I quickly read a quote by Isaac Asimov? One of my favorite quotes of all time.
By all means.
I believe in evidence. I believe in observation, measurement, and reasoning confirmed by independent observers. I will believe anything, no matter how wild and ridiculous, if there is evidence for it. The wilder and more ridiculous something is, however, the firmer and more solid the evidence will have to be. I love that.
Yeah, I love that.
Consensual cannibalism.
Yeah, that actually is how the quote ended. I cut it off a bit early, but yeah, that's true. Thanks for filling
it's
that
not
in.
well known, but Asimov was really pro animatronics because he wanted to eat the rest of everyone.
That's cool.
So
what a guy.
We're gonna end this half of the show, but we don't normally do this. But if you guys have some extra time after the music break, we'd love to have you stay with us.
Yeah, I mean, if you're okay with someone who's been drinking a lot of bourbon to stick around, I'm willing to stick around and refresh my bourbon.
Yeah, there are literally 3 empty beer cans in front of Cory right now.
That's great. I'm glad
and
that
an energy drink.
That's not beer. Stop lying.
3 servings of alcoholic beverage.
Your beers mean nothing to me.
Oh, this beer means nothing to anyone, Charlie. It's got clam juice in it. I don't know what to tell you.
I drink it because it
We're
tastes
Virginian. I'm just downing fifths of Jim Beam. You have no idea.
Well, okay. I need to get you some better bourbon.
I'm too poor to drink real bourbon, so I drink bourbon that gets me drunk.
Before we go and after, of course, everybody made fun of my beer. I have to say, like the other day, I poured a glass of just Clamato juice and ice after a workout, and I got home and I drank this, and it was the most sublime experience.
Wait.
Ever.
Back way the fuck up, Iceman. What juice?
Clamato.
Juice from what?
Clamato juice. It's like
tomato and clam juice. Yeah.
Wait, what?
Okay, wait, and then
that's what,
and then there's beer.
That's the difference between a Bloody
Mary.
Mary and a Caesar. A Bloody Mary has tomato juice and a Caesar has Clamato juice.
So this is like super savory.
Somewhat
tomato juice, clam juice,
just like it's a little saltier.
Alcohol. It is
okay.
The thing
I
that makes my existence worthwhile.
Not your children, not your girlfriend.
Back from the alcohol you've drank.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay, so I'm gonna. I'm going to say this is where we'll take the break for music. For live listeners and patrons, you can enjoy the next few minutes, and we'll be back. Then at regular feed subscribers, this is where we'll end the Skeptic Studio. Remember to check out the Shift to Reason Radio next week to hear listener feedback, new patrons, and iTunes reviews. The music this week is Delirium by Lacuna Coil, Incinerate by Semblant, and Raising Hell by Bullet for My Valentine. I have not done a Hardcore Skeptic episode in approximately a month. Starting to feel
Don't
a
you
little...
feel bad about that in your heart, Cory?
I absolutely do, actually.
Judgy. So judgy.
You can find all of those episodes at thehardcoreskeptic.com. We're still hoping to get enough for a conference, but right now it's looking rather bleak. If If you want to support a conference in Saskatchewan, then you can do that at gofundme.com/shift-2-reason-conference-2018.
I haven't even looked at that thing recently.
Oh, it hasn't even, because nobody's giving any money to it.
I need to post it. I need to post, I need to go to the media about that, maybe.
Do it, Angela. Do it.
I saw that.
Our local people do not want a conference bad enough. I'm starting to just feel like that's the case.
Yeah.
So
you have a digital conference right here, though.
That's true. That is true.
Oh, I just had a thought. Okay. We'll talk about it later.
You can check out the show notes at thebrainstormpodcast.com and our website, brainstormblog.net. Thanks to our financial supporters, Will, Aaron, Daryl, Destin Sucks, Lachlan, Lisa, Magnus, Michael, Nathan, Positively Skeptical, Rob, Stephanie, and now the Utah Outcasts. If you want to join their ranks and help the show grow, then you can do that at patreon.com/brainstormpodcast. You can join us live every second week when we broadcast live on Spreaker. You can find us at brainstormradio.net. Our next guest is Zach Law from the Sacrilege Cast. That's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you, Aaron. And thanks to GW.
Thank you so much.
For joining us. You can find out more about their podcast at avoidpod.com. I'll put a link in the show notes at thebrainstormpodcast.com. Our regular notes at brainstormblog.net are still a work in progress. I am looking for people who will help me finish those. I will pay you. Yeah, so that's that. Thanks to Dave for our intro music. Thanks to Alex Kepper-Murdoch for doing the voiceover for the intro and some of our ads. And thanks to Jason Camo for our outro music, which we didn't play today. You can find his stuff over at...
We'll get some hi-hats.
There we go.
We'll get some hi-hats.
There we go. All music played is either with permission or under the SOCAN license to play. For more information on SOCAN, you can check out the music license info on our website, brainstormblog.net. Remember to give us a rating, a thumbs up, or a fave on your podcatcher of choice. Join our Facebook group, like our page, follow us on Twitter, share the show, and spread the word. For live listeners, stick around for the after show. You can find us on Brainstorm. English is a thing I do.
English.
Brainstormafterhours.com and listen to the bonus content before it goes patron only. Thanks for listening, and remember, the truth matters.
This is an opinion-based podcast. Each person on the podcast is responsible for their own opinions, and those opinions don't necessarily reflect the views of the rest of the panel, any guests, or anyone associated with the people. This is an opinion-based podcast. Each person on the podcast is responsible for their own opinions, and those opinions don't necessarily reflect the views of the rest of the panel, any guests, or anyone associated with the people on the podcast, such as spouses, partners, children, other family members, friends, or employers. No one person speaks for the podcast, with the possible exception of Cory, and he doesn't speak for anyone else on the show. The Brainstorm podcast does not represent the views of our sponsors.
We just wanted to say thanks to everyone who listens to us, shares the show, gives us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or supports us through Patreon and Gumroad. We don't have a lot of interactions with our listeners, but what we have had proves that we attract some of the best people around. Smart, kind, and cool. An audience truly worthy of the titles hardcore and woo-free. Thanks for helping us make the world a smarter place.